Barry, I know what I'm gonna do tomorrow, and the next day, and next year, and the year after that. I'm shaking the dust of this crummy little town off my feet, and I'm gonna see the world.
George, Terry, you're shaking the house down. Stop it.
Oh, let them alone. I wish I was up there with them.
This is me. You remember me? George Bailey. What is it you want, Barry? What do you want? You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down. I wish I had $1 million. I'm in trouble, Mr. Potter. I need help.
At exactly 10:45 p.m. Earth time, that man will be thinking seriously of throwing away God's greatest gift.
I don't want any plastic, I don't want any ground floors, and I don't want to get married ever to anyone. You understand that? I want to do what I want to do.
Welcome back, everyone, to Late to the Party, where we like to review movies that are at least 10 years old and get the perspective of some lame millennials and some seasoned Gen Xers.
Where are you looking?
I'm looking over there.
Sorry. Maybe this is why we should do
Sorry. This week, we got the chance to review the classic film It's a Wonderful Life, which was done in 1946. And ironically, we saw it on, what was it, Amazon Prime?
Mm-hmm.
And it was rated PG-13, if you can imagine such an atrocity.
Wasn't it PG for the longest time?
It was supposedly for alcohol use, sexual content, smoking, and violence. No. It was directed by Frank Capra, who also directed the famous film Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, which ironically also starred Jimmy Stewart. And he also did, interestingly, Capra was famous for doing a host of propaganda films for the U.S. War Department during the Second World War. So when you see like Captain America, the First Avenger, you see all those propaganda films, it was probably Frank Capra stuff. So this film starred Jimmy Stewart as George Bailey, Donna Reed as Mary Hatch, Lionel Barrymore as Mr. Potter. And interestingly, Lionel Barrymore is the ancestor of Drew Barrymore. Apparently their whole family is into the acting thing. Dun, 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 dun. Right. Thomas Mitchell as Uncle Billy, Henry Travers as Clarence Oddbody, AS2, and many, many other actors who are playing characters who had far more depth than any character we've seen in modern Star Wars films. The ratings for this film rate necessarily high, 8.6 out of 10 on IMDb, 95% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, and, not surprisingly, 4.8 out of 5 stars on Walmart.com. For Jose, the movie had a budget of $3.18 million and did a box office of $3.3 million. Well, maybe so. In 1946, that might be a lot more money than what we're thinking of these days. But I wanted to jump right into the questions, and I know some people didn't watch the film.
Fucking Steve. I haven't. Roll. Resign.
But well, I'll throw Isaac's question at you since this wingling here didn't even bother.
I didn't want to watch. I couldn't watch it. I'm sorry. I just couldn't get.
The first question is, how many people here was this their first time seeing the film? Okay. So some of us saw it for the first time, and some of us didn't see it at all.
What a dick! I watched. I tried.
What first did you get?
Yeah, I'm not playing it. All right.
What's the last scene you
Did you
saw?
remember?
I don't. It was just black and white. I'm sorry.
So you just skip over the first part of like Wizard of Oz?
No. No. Actually, I do always watch it in the color version, like the. It's very.
All right, let me throw this question out to Nate. Nate, since you are the official businessman of our group, aren't your sympathies naturally with Mr. Potter?
No, fuck that guy.
Why not? What's wrong with Mr. Potter?
Because he wasn't just greedy, he was evil and greedy. It's one thing to go out and get yours, but once your cup's full, he was just doing his thing to try to take from other people. He didn't need anything. He wasn't. It's a good thing he couldn't feel his dick.
Maybe that's why he wanted to take from everybody.
No, that's what it is. He wanted everybody to feel his dick. If he couldn't feel it, he wanted everybody to feel it.
For those of you that don't know, Mr. Potter was wheelchair bound. So Nate here is making fun of the handicapped.
Rich dick handicapped.
Again, the views of Nate don't reflect the views of the rest of the audience out there watching.
So I was going to throw this question to Isaac, but since he doesn't know, I'm going to throw it your direction instead, Steve.
He's looking at notes.
He's watching the movie.
So,
well, remember, I haven't watched it for a long, long time, so if I don't remember,
been a long time.
You're gonna get graded on this.
We'll take a shot. This will determine whether you come back next week. So I was going to ask Isaac what he thought of the acting in this film, and not just the main characters, but the background characters. You have any recollection?
Oh, there's the taxi driver, the fucking policeman, that chick. You know the chick.
I mean, it keeps coming back in like every other scene. You keep reusing all the background.
Yeah, the process.
Let me instead let Jason take that one. What do you think about
I
that?
thought they were great.
That's it, just great.
They were great. They really filled out the town and made it feel very full. I think one thing with the aging, nobody aged in that town, so that was a little bit hard to get.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought the background characters were great.
The one that was especially atrocious, I think, was Mr. Gower, the guy that ran the pharmacy that he worked for, that Bailey worked for when he was a kid. And then when he shows up when he's old, he's like the same damn age. It's like
his parents too.
I'm like, that guy's a vampire. You need to kill his ass.
That changes everything about this movie.
He's making potions in the background. That's why he ran the pharmacy.
There it is. That guy's making that guy's cooking crack back there.
Oh my god.
All right.
Yeah, he was gonna kill that woman.
Liz.
Yes.
What is it that struck you about the second half of the film? Like what stood out to you, when George has to experience the world without himself in it? What in particular about that part of the film had the biggest impact?
It was a whole different movie. It's like basically it's like a 2.5 hour movie. It's like 2 hours is the movie, and it's like a half an hour of what his life would have been like without. It was kind of quick, but it was interesting because the town, when Potter took over, you got to see how big of a villain he really was, because he turned everything into like skeezy, it turned it into Pottersville, but it was all like girly dance halls and bars and like casinos and all of that,
So it turned into Las Vegas.
Yeah,
it turned into Back to the Future too.
Yeah, stay off the grass, and everything was you can't go here, you can't go there, you can't do this, you can't do that. It was very controlled, and but I mean, it's just one of those things that
Just say it must be fast.
yeah.
Rampage!
It resonated with me though, because probably because of my dad. Because it's one of those things where you don't know what you think something bad or good or whatever happens, and you don't know the repercussions of that later on. So when he wasn't born, you know, that he didn't save his brother didn't do this, and then because his brother didn't do that, or because he didn't do that, or didn't take care of this, or you don't realize what you were missing afterwards. I get that. So that part, like, well, like 3, but yeah, it touched me on a different like level, just because I always get asked. Sorry, making this into a sappy thing, but you know what would happen if your mom? Because my mom passed away when I was little. I always get asked by kids, "Well, don't you get mad because it happened to you?" And I said, "Well, no, because if it didn't, then I wouldn't have had that. My dad would have met his, second wife, and I wouldn't have had my sister. I wouldn't have had all these other things." And it was just, it's kind of like a little bit of a reversal. So I never realized that happened. Yeah. So it was kind of, it was touching. I'm kind of pissed at myself for not actually watching this movie sooner.
Right. I only ever caught like small clips of the film, especially when it would show up in other films.
Like Gremlins in the background,
or like how it was playing in the background of the recent episode of Hawkeye.
Yeah.
All right, Jose.
Man, how are you gonna ask me to follow that?
No, they're different questions. So,
welcome.
So
Look, you made out in the white elephant snag at this.
Do you think that this film is like a little bit campy and naive and simplistic for our time?
Excellent question, Josh. I'm gonna tell you what is the one redeeming quality about this movie. Is the old-timey lingo. And I can understand why it's now a PG-13 movie, because there was a couple references. There was a couple times when they were talking, and then she was saying something like, "You're gonna tongue that woman out to death," and I was just like, "Oh crud!" That does not mean the same. He's like, "What was the other one too?" He's like, "Oh, he's gonna what is it? Bang the love out of her or something like that." Like they were just saying stuff. I was like, like that does not mean the same now that it meant back then. But what was your question? Whether it was campy,
whether it was campy or naive or simplistic for our time.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like for me, I was like, and again, I hate to, I like that Liz a little bit. For me, it was more like, yes, the dumbest angel that's been trying for 200 years to get this task done.
It's Soul.
Was that what it was? I haven't watched Soul, so I don't know.
You mean Soul? You mean Soul is
Yeah.
Surprised that Disney has no original ideas to put that on the board.
No, but then again, remember this movie is in public domain, so sure. That's why they can remake it and show it and all that stuff. It was, I'm not so
Hawkeye for free.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, but there's something, you know. I like that it's something. You know, as much as I was making fun of it, but this is definitely something that the kids could sit down and watch. And see, to me though, I'm very, I don't know. I said it when I first walked in. I was like, this is a very, what did I say?
Narcissistic.
This is a very narcissistic movie. He's looking at what would have happened without him. He obviously ruined that guy's play. He could have made a ton more money. Just stuff like that. But see, to me, I read The Giving Tree as a kid, and I saw that and I was like, oh, what a great book and all this stuff, right? And as I got older, I look back at it now, I'm like, man, what a piece of crud that kid is. And it's like kind of the same way. I feel like if I would have watched this movie as a kid, I would have been like, oh, it's so wonderful and all this stuff. But then as I get older,
Did I have this conversation with you, chuckleheads up here? How dare you not like The Giving Tree?
I didn't say I didn't like it.
I said the kid wasn't a little shit. He was just a kid. And
but as an adult,
thanks for bringing up my dead mom again, you clown.
Oh, Jesus.
Wow. See, that was like the one story that my mom would read to me, and I found the book the other day, and it was like inscribed by my mom to me.
See,
fucking.
What the heck? You're gonna make me cry and get angry.
See, what would have happened if I brought that up?
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Drink your meat.
Again.
Right. Try my ass to drink. I don't drink.
No, but I still own the copy. I still read it to the kids. So again, it's just one of those things where it's like I've changed. I've gotten cold inside. I don't know.
This is a question that's for all the gents here. This is not for Liz. I would just like to get the collective thoughts of the guys here on whether or not women of that day were hotter than they are today.
I don't know, but they get a 10 out of 10. As is.
And that was like cream of the crop, girl next door, beautiful.
Yeah. Even the girl that was kind of like
even the hoochie.
Yeah.
The hoochie.
She was good looking.
But his girl was harder than the hoochie.
Oh, for sure.
Jimmy Stewart was a very handsome man too, and when he was young.
I'm not saying that he was an ugly guy, but the way he spoke was annoying.
Well, the way he
spoke.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ!
He could have narrated in the Richer Man.
Here comes the Lord. Yeah, that was one of the things that kind of struck me when I was watching the film. Is just the kind of like different level of attraction that one has for women that are like that, as opposed to, you know, Kate Beckinsale in that leather outfit or something. You know, it's a different kind of.
Talking about fucking decades.
Sure, but there's something
Kate
more.
Beckinsale's hotness is directly tied to how well she fits into a leather outfit, as opposed to Donna Reed looking natural.
They had the natural look, and it was just sexy as fuck.
Well, not only that, but he went to work, right? And he would come home, and she was taking care of like 17 kids while doing the wallpaper in the house and cooking meal with one foot. Like, they don't make no women like that anymore. That was the hottest thing. I was like, wow.
Yeah, you just run in circles. They do make women like that still.
Putting in work.
I mean, I don't cook and clean. I can do one or the other.
All right. Well,
he gets to flip a coin, and it gets to determine which one I get for that day.
let's get to the buckets, and we'll start with you, Jose. What do you think?
I'm ragging on this movie, but it does. I mean, even Dave Chappelle made a parody of it. Its cultural impact can't be denied. The just staging all the background actors. They filled up the screen. They did it really well. Despite how jaded I'm looking at it, it still holds a good moral. I can still see the lessons being taught from that movie today. And it's an American classic, so I'm not gonna rag on it. I'm just gonna, I'm ragging on it, but just to be the one, guy that's gonna rag on it. But no denying and going off of the scale, I'm gonna give it to him.
Huh? Steve?
You said it perfectly. I mean, it's an American classic. For me, the last time I saw it, I always liked the movie. It just seemed like a whole different era in the U.S. history, like compared to what we are now. It's something that I wouldn't mind having compared to part of it. Huh? What?
You wouldn't be a part of it. Sure, you would. He'd be the kitchen.
Yeah, I'll be in the back. But at least I'll be there. You know what I'm saying? At least I'll be there. I'll be paying.
You're forgetting they had signs that said, "No brown, no goblins." From the restaurants, my guy. They wouldn't let you in. Remember when this movie was?
Guys, if you don't see this Jose next week, I
liked when you were a screenshot of a comic
I'm gonna break this bottle down right now. Very
Don't break this
It's going down this weekend. Next week, full flood in Anaheim, California.
Like the cases over the screens on the floor.
He literally is mostly human.
Yeah, so it's to me, I really wanted, even when I was a young kid, I really enjoyed it. It was something I watched it with my mom mostly, and so for me, it's like, well, not a 10 out of 10, but it would be a 9 out of 10.
Does it still feel the same? Because I know you were there over the day. So.
I'm not that old, bastard. But since the last time, I still feel the same way.
Was everything black and white like this? Or was it color?
You're not that young, you motherfucker. Okay. Excuse my language.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Yeah, so yeah, 9 out of 10 for me. It was it's a good movie that I mean, yeah, it's a little campy, but you know, it's nice.
Jason?
It's not a perfect movie by any means. It certainly takes us back to a different era. I think we get a really good look at what a certain type of culture of that day was like. I think we see a lot of what their values were, and I think it's kind of crazy. Nobody here's brought up the whole like capitalism is bad element that the movie's really putting out there. I think that's a discussion that we still are having today. You know, I think we see a lot of that with the slums that Potter's putting out there. Like, these places exist, and this movie's still relevant in that way.
You just don't have the good like Baileys out there that are everybody is now Potter and nobody is a Bailey.
Right. Well,
That's what you get.
You hope there's a George Bailey out there.
Well, yeah, but why is everybody Mr. Potter and not George Bailey today? It's because we don't have the faith of George Bailey. Mr. Potter was a faithless bastard. When George Bailey says Merry Christmas to him, his response is Happy New Year to you in jail.
Yeah.
Right.
He's got no concept of it. Everything for him is his money and his greed. Whereas George is about obviously self-sacrifice. He does it his whole life. And that's what we're missing.
But to your corporate thing, you're right. There's too many Potters and not enough Baileys.
Yes. And we could definitely Bailey's faith is something we could delve into. I think it's like you have like a materialist versus someone who's more about the people. You know, yeah. And I mean, you could boil that down into whatever type of faith you want to fucking attribute that to. Sorry, but you know, whoops.
This is a Christmas show. It's gonna be
The reason why I was starting to draw that parallel, but what I was thinking was that the people of that town were able to prosper because of Bailey's personal sacrifice, the profit in their business and everything about what they were doing. It was a personal sacrifice to him. Whereas Potter was doing the same thing, but he kept all the profits and just anything he could do to just leech money off of those people he was doing by himself. But the contrary would be that he sacrificed to take care of all those people, and they all helped each other, and they all agreed to help each other. What they didn't do, which would be the big parallel of today, is they showed, hey, this is what you can do, this is what he does, but they didn't all get together, grab pitchforks, and go hunt down Potter at the end of the movie to try to steal all his stuff from him. So I think that's the.
So they didn't cancel him then.
Well, no, cancel him.
They should have.
Maybe they should have. That's what the next movie is. That's It's a Wonderful Life Part 2. Potter's Revenge or something.
Right.
Bailey's Revenge.
That was guillotine.
But to bring it into today's culture, everybody would get in a pot and call themselves pies.
Can't miss that just you already.
So how many buckets was that, Jason?
How many pots was that, Jason?
This was 10 Baileys.
There you go. Like that.
So just translate that something.
Liz?
I'm like I said, I'm sad that I haven't seen it before. It has a lot, for me, it has a lot more of a personal, like I said, touch to it. I can see where my dad gets a lot of his happy, light glasses half full, always find the humor in everything kind of like attitude. When I was watching this movie, I was just seeing a lot of my dad in it. So it had a personal like emotion for me out of it. It isn't perfect. Yeah, there's some like cut scenes or little things here and there that I think maybe they extended a little too long. It's definitely good. I give it a 10 out of 10. I do. It's got the cultural references. It stands the test of time. I think it's well acted. All of the parts in it for what they were. I like all their names too. Remember we were talking about it, like Bert and Ernie.
Yeah.
there's characters in there that are
Ernie
best friends.
Ernie the cab driver and Bert the cop.
The
they're
cop,
always
they're like
hanging
best
together.
buds, and I was like, I wonder
Really?
if this is where Sesame Street and Bert and Ernie.
Yeah.
One was like super tall, the other and skinny, the other one was kind of like short, round face too. And I was like, I guess that's what they would look like as Muppets. So I thought that was kind of funny. Little things like that popped out. So it's 10 out of 10.
And Nate, you?
We're gonna skip Isaac today. No, that's an obvious 10 for me. I hadn't seen that movie since the 80s, and I remember that I liked it, but it made me like happy cry when I was a kid. And I don't like to feel that in movies. I'm not looking usually to go to movies that have any kind of tears. I want to go there and watch like where the guy's sensei got killed, and he spends the whole movie learning how to fight with his eyes blinded or something, and then killing the guy at the end of the movie who killed his sensei. And those are the ones.
Yeah, you're talking about Bloodsport. Yeah,
Bloodsport, kickboxer.
John Cusack getting the girl.
Exactly.
$2.
And you, Josh?
This movie, like Liz, I regret that I've never actually seen it the entirety. And for what it's worth, I'm like Nate. I don't like to watch movies that have any propensity to draw out some sort of sappy emotions. But yeah, I was.
It gets you.
I had to wipe tears off of my face watching this film, and honestly, it's because you know, part of it is looking and recognizing. Kind of like what Steve Rogers says in the first Avengers film, you know, they told me we've won, but they didn't say what we lost. How much have we as a culture lost back then? Even that, if that's a twisted, like hyper accentuated version of what mid 1940s American culture was like. Even if it's somewhat dimmed from that, it's still leagues better than what we got now. And yeah, it's a great film. It's just a little sad on the end because, you know, when you reflect on where we are right now, it's kind of a bummer. But it's undeniably it's a 10 out of 10. You know, thinking on all the parts of the film, the acting, the directing, the story, like everything, it just flows well from front to back. There's lots of good setups and payoffs in the film. And I'm not sure that I've ever seen a movie with Jimmy Stewart in it, but even with his annoying speech patterns, I was still enchanted by his character and the things that he accomplished in his life. So definitely a 10 out of 10. So guys, thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the movie as well, and join us next week because I'm going to hand the baton off to, or in this case, the Shivas to Jose, and he'll be selecting the movie for next week's viewing. So join us then. And for Late to the Party, I'm Josh.
I'm Liz.
I'm Jason.
I'm Isaac.
I'm late. See you next.